Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome to the third session for today. How's your day been? I don't know if you were all able to join the first two sessions earlier today, but I must say they were fantastic sessions. Really deep insights were shared. I don't know if anybody was here earlier. Can I see? If you were here there, can you send a message? Let me know how the session was. I don't know if you were all able to join the first two sessions earlier today, but I must say they were fantastic sessions. Really deep insights were shared. I don't know if anybody was here earlier. And I see if you were here there, can you send a message? Let me know how the session was. Earlier today, I must say they were fantastic sessions. Really deep insights were shared. Fantastic sessions. Really. Okay, thank you for joining this session. I'm just waiting for a few minutes for more people to join. Okay, thank you, Charles. You were able to join the 9 a.m. session. Bumi. Yes, okay, you joined the 9 a.m. session as well. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you all had a great time learning here. So this is our final session for today, but remember there's another day tomorrow. There'll be 3 sessions tomorrow as well. The first one is by 9 a.m., second by 12 noon, and then a third one by 3 p.m. We're going to be having Samuel Akinoton, Kamal Aderibigbe, and Patrick Akam tomorrow. So please make sure to plan your day and then join as many sessions as you can. All right. Okay, I see you joined the 2 sessions. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for making out time out of your weekend to join us here in on learning. The truth is, nobody has been in a post-COVID era. But what we are trying to do here is to learn from the experience of people, to share some strategies that we can help to apply in our workplace, in our businesses, to try and help our organizations not just to survive but to thrive. And we trust that the presentations that will be made will be inspired, that we'll get answers to some of the questions that we have in our hearts, and then gain some clarity on how we can go ahead, go to work back on Monday, and try and drive our businesses to still achieve some great results this year. Okay, that said, let me quickly introduce our speaker for today. His name is Kayode Johnson. He will be speaking on nudging the HR paradigm for positive influence on employee behavior. Trust me, this is an interesting topic. When he sent in his topic, I had to go do a little research, and it was it's really an interesting topic, the theory and the concept of nudging. And I trust that you're going to find it insightful as well. So let's quickly get right into it. So let's meet our speaker for today. His name is Kayode, as mentioned earlier. He's a certified HR professional with more than 15 years of progressive HR generalist experience. His area of core strength in HR is strategic HR management. He has worked with organizations that operate as not-for-profits, health institutions, agribusiness, and construction companies. He has also enjoyed more than 5 years of private practice. He is currently the HR manager of St. Nicholas Hospital, a world-renowned hospital with over 50 years of quality healthcare delivery in Nigeria, with 4 locations spread across Lagos. He holds the SPHRI certification from HRCI and an MBA in Human Resource Management from Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, and a Master of Employment and Labor Studies from University of Lagos, and then a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Relations and Personnel Management from the University of Lagos. I trust you can see that he's an HR person through and through. He has 2 masters, and even his bachelor's degree is also in human resources. So without much further ado, let's welcome Kayode Johnson. He'll be speaking on nudging the HR paradigm shift, HR paradigm for positive influence on employee behavior. You know what to do. The people in the previous sessions, let's see the virtual standing ovation and the applause in the comment section. Please, let's give a warm welcome again to Kayode Johnson. Kayode, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Jide, and good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to everyone. Like Mr. Jide said, my name is Johnson Kayode, and I'm an HR professional like you, and we are all still learning as we move on. It's a very interesting season. It's a very interesting period, and there are changes in the workplace, and the best we can do is to always keep in touch or keep at par with global trends as they emerge. So this afternoon, we'll be talking about nudging the HR paradigm for positive influence on employee behavior. I know this looks like a very, very big grammar, but simple one. This is me. If you have ever seen me before, my voice may be sounding like that of a lady, but I'm a guy. This is what Jide just presented to us. So this is me in summary. This session, we're actually going to be looking at introduction to nudging. We're going to be talking about ethical concerns in nudging, the nudging framework according to McLean and Company, the nudges application in HR, then key highlights. What are we taking away? Now for the key highlights and some parts of the presentation. So this presentation draws heavily on a survey conducted by McLean and Company. That survey was conducted by them. It's in the process of me trying to learn something new that I came about this. However, I need you to note at the beginning, this is something that deals with behavioral aspect of the employment relationship. And when you look at HR practice area, you begin to talk about employee engagement. It is when you're able to engage your people very well that you can get the best out of them, so that we can begin to create a link between everything we'll be doing going forward. Okay, let me put on my video so that you can see me. That is me.
Great, fantastic.
Okay, I said let's start with the following thoughts. Says the workplace has moved from depending heavily on technical skills to trusting your guts to make the right decisions. As this comes up very much at the point where you are recruiting and you are interviewing. You begin to see different kinds of candidates, and you just like, something tells me this person will succeed on the role, but the technical aspect of it does not seem to be very, very useful. He said it is expedient to know that the HR professional is the integrator or link that connects, that is aligns other stakeholders together in the business environment. There are 2 key responsibilities that HR plays in any organization, irrespective of what policies you have or you don't have. You talk about communication, that's effective communication, and you talk about alignment. Whatever you are doing in HR, if it doesn't align with the strategic objective or strategic goal of the business, it's a waste of resources, it's a waste of time. Then the role of HR in employee management is to nudge them by guiding them in their decision-making process. You can only achieve this if you have successfully earned their trust and confidence. And finally, as good as strategy is, alignment is critical for long-term sustainability of any business concern. And this can only be achieved where there is effective communication between the people and the management. I just wanted to start with those statements so that we can begin to think in certain directions as we move on. Have you ever come across this statement? We hire for attitude and train for skills. You know, we've always been made to believe that, see, skills happen to be the most important. But about 5 years ago, I began to look at a shift and I began to search online to know what's up. Then I came across this statement that says we hire for attitude and train for skills. And it says that skills can be taught, but the right attitude cannot be taught. So these are the underlying principles that will surely come handy as we go into this presentation proper. It was Zig Ziglar that said this, that you don't build a business, you build people, and people build the business, because this is about people development. Then, according to Merriam-Webster, to nudge is to urge into action. That means someone is in a position of rest or inaction, and you want to make the person take action. That's what it means to nudge the person. That's why you see the image that was used on the welcome screen is the image of a hand that was trying to push a guy forward. Nudging simply means urging someone into action. Now, nudging intervention refers to all activities and programs geared towards enhancing employees' capacity to act positively and appropriately. I need you to pay attention to enhancing employees' capacity. That capacity is to help them act positively and appropriately. The aim of this presentation is to enable participants to activate their people management skills in order to urge employees into positive action. How? By positively influencing their decisions and actions, first, to fulfill personal aspirations and also to the benefit of the organization. Whatever you are urging the employee to do, if the employee does not see any good in it for himself or herself, it will not work. The first thing is people apply it to themselves, and where it becomes applicable, then it can be useful to the company. This presentation is segmented into 4: introduction to nudges, ethical concern in nudging, nudging framework by McLean and Company, then nudges applied in HR. These are examples of what had been done. That's where we pull a lot of those information from. Decision making is not always as rational as popularly believed. I guess we can all agree with me on this. A simple thing is to be done, and you get amazed the way people come up with their decisions. And the question is, how did you arrive at this decision or assumption? So it's not as simple as you always think. So we believe that human beings generally make decisions in 2 ways. The first way is system 1 thinking. What is system 1 thinking? It is intuitive, it is instinctual, and it is emotional. It's the way I feel that I take decision. It says, while system 1 thinking enables humans to think quickly, it is vulnerable to biases and heuristics, often leading to poor decision. Heuristics are mental shortcuts people use in their thinking processes to make quick decisions. What this is saying is, I'd rather prefer to make decisions that is most comfortable for me. I follow my guts, I follow my feelings, I follow my biases, and I just make the decisions. It's faster, but it has a downside because it's vulnerable to biases and heuristics. Then the system 2 thinking. This is analytical, it is rational, and it is logical. You can literally say it is scientific in the way the decision is taken, is made. Although it is tempting to believe that all decisions are made using system 2 thinking. When confronted with a decision, humans often rely on their quickest instinct reactions, which originate in system 1. I guess we can understand that we make decisions in 2 ways. It's either based on your guts or based on a clearly processed procedure. Now, this is McLean's insight into this. You know, I said it pulls a lot. This presentation pulls a lot from their survey. So at some point, you'll be seeing what their insight about this is. They said there's a natural reliance on system 1 thinking as a result in making quick and easy decisions. These decisions, however, may not always be as optimal as we like to believe. Both systems of thinking have their merits, and nudges guide people to use the system that's best for the situation. So it simply means that there's no system that is better than the other, but it is the situation that determines which system is best. And it is in the place of nudging, or when you apply nudging, that you can actually help people take the right decision based on whichever system will work best for them. Nudges help to, nudges help to reduce the impacts of biases and heuristics in decision. What does that mean? No, we say heuristics are shortcuts that you have created in your head. And the shortcut helps you to arrive at a decision without really thinking so much. For example, you want to recruit, you are interviewing for a particular role, and someone comes, probably your requirement is at least 5 years experience in a certain area. And this person came in that has about 15 years experience. The first thing you want to assume is this person will be better, because you have created a shortcut in your head that the longer someone has worked on the job, the better the person will become. But it doesn't always work that way. Now, it says behavioral science has revealed human decision making to be riddled with biases and heuristics, directly impacting on how we think. Some of these includes Halo and Horn's bias. In undergraduate class, they will tell you about halo effect in interviewing. Someone just comes in, just by observing one thing, you already have formed an opinion about that person. Can say weighing one trait, either good or bad, more than other traits. I once attended a meeting, and the moment I entered into the interview room, it's an interview, sorry. The moment I got into the room, I saw a classmate of mine during our undergraduate days who was the recruitment officer. So I sat down, they interviewed me. I felt I had a good interview and I left. Then about 2 days later, I just got in touch with her to say, babe, Alpha. And she said, you did very well at the interview, but we are not employing you. And I said, why? She said, no, it's not that you didn't do well. She said, the moment you walked in, my boss just did not like you. Whatever the boss saw that made her not to like me, I don't know. But this is where you see Halo and Horn's bias. You look at one trait, maybe the way the person appears. Some people will say, oh, this person looks arrogant. It's a look. You've not even dealt with the person. For example, for football lovers, when people talk about Ronaldo, see Ronaldo, and they talk about Messi, they tell you Messi looks humble, Ronaldo looks arrogant. But look, most times, are not always the real reflection of the person you are talking about. So this is where that comes in. Sorry, then it said present bias, placing one more weight on immediate rather than future gains. This simply means that I see two candidates. I'm relating this more to talent management, acquisition and management now. I need someone that will succeed on a job, and I just saw someone that seemed to be working very well on the role where the person is. And I saw someone else that I know in the next 6 months to 1 year, given the right support, this person will outperform the other person because of potentials we can see. You just say, you know what? It is better we bring this person that does not require any training. And most of all, we do it a lot in HR. We bring people in that we think can deliver now. And at the end of the day, you realize that if you had given a bit of room for future gains, the person that did not look like it now may eventually be it. Let me share a practical example. We recruited a nurse in my organization recently. And the day the nurse came to resume, she could not operate an elevator. And she's to work in an hospital where the HR office is on the 14th floor. Even in the ward area, you have to use the elevator to move from one floor to another, especially when you are transporting patients. And when this lady came, she couldn't use the elevator, but we didn't know. She came in. But when she was about stepping out, she just approached me and she said, sorry, can you help me operate the lift? And I said, what do you mean? She said she cannot use it. Now, if you use the fact that she cannot operate an elevator as the basis for determining whether she will succeed on the job. On the long run, you may be making a very, very serious mistake, because she's just getting exposed to something and needs a little bit of guidance and nudging to be able to come up to the next level. Then status quo bias versus inertia, preferring one's current state even when a new state is optimal. All of us naturally we're prone to this. Nobody wants change to happen. Once there's a change that is being proposed, you see everybody begin to resist it, though the change will favor them. So this one says, I prefer the status quo. Let it just stay, please. Anybody that is at rest until there's an external application of force, the body remains at rest. So let my body remain at inertia. Don't just trouble me. That's what this is saying. Then social proof bias, informing and basing decision on peers' behavior. There's someone, an experience from this. One of my staff recently is applying to a place outside the country, and they are asking for, sorry, I'm going to be sharing a lot of practical experiences here. And they were asking for a reference from us, sent us a form. And one of my officers filled the form. And in a place where they asked any disciplinary matter, and they said yes. So the company replied to say, can you give us details about the disciplinary matter? It was at that point I saw it and I said, hold on, get me the person's documents. By the time we looked at it, it was a group failure that the person got a warning for. Now, if you use that to communicate to the other company that wants to employ this person, you realize that you are using group behavior, group error, to literally want to stop someone from moving on. So eventually I had to say, you know what, write to them that this is a group punishment, not a personal one. So here it says, informing and basing decision on peers' behavior. The fact that 3 members of the team misbehave does not mean the 4th person misbehaved or would actually misbehave. But we do a lot of that assumption as HR professionals in practice. Then availability heuristic, that is relying on readily available and common information to make a decision. You see, in HR analytics, at least analytics is one thing that everybody is trying to come around with. You realize that the way we gather our data in HR, well, I don't know for most of you, but most Nigerian practices are not that structured to give you the details you want that quickly. Now, if I'm looking for someone to handle my HR analytics, all I needed would be for someone that has an average working knowledge of Microsoft Excel, for example, and I can build something around it. But you realize that most of the time, so most of us look for is someone that can use SAP, someone that can use Oracle Business Suite, and all those things. When you rely on that person, you bring in the person. The question is, do you have the system to help that person work on it? So it says relying on readily available and common information to make a decision. You are not ready to process it further. Like me bias, attributing overly positive sentiments to people we see as similar to ourselves. This is, I'm a quiet person and I see someone who is also quiet. We look alike. Or I like to talk and I see someone who also likes to talk. You form your bias on that. Then here it says, biases will always exist. You need to know that. To help people make better decisions with these constraints in mind, Richard Taylor and Cass Sustain established nudges. These are the people that came up with the concept of nudges. It says nudges are behaviorally informed interventions. Behaviorally informed interventions that predictably encourage behavior that benefits an individual or the collective good without limiting any options of choice. What this is saying is, I want to have an influence over your behavior, and I need you to see it as something that is beneficial to you, because it is only when you see that it is beneficial to you that you can now bring it to the collective good of everybody without limiting any options of choice. That means that you leave all the options on the table. Don't just tell me one thing and try to force me to do it. We'll get there when we look at ethical considerations. Nudges both challenge the negative aspects of our biases and use their positive aspects to encourage better decision making. What this is simply saying is, let me tell you the truth. HR professionals, if a Yoruba person in Nigeria and you are interviewing an Igbo person, there is already a bias. The bias in Nigeria is Igbos can be arrogant. The bias is they are not respectful. Now, those are biases that do not always hold true. So what nudges will do is to challenge the negative aspect of your bias and say, what if this person is not the picture, the heuristic you have created in your head? What if this person is actually different from what you think others have? So when it does that and use their positive aspects to encourage better decision making, when that is done, your negative biases are taken out of the way, then you can begin to look forward to positive outcome from that place. Okay, this man here he says biases are not character flaws. They are coping mechanisms. Just as often for something as against. You know, when you debate in favor of or against. That's what he's saying. It says that we all use every day. The more we can acknowledge our biases, the easier it is to mitigate their potential to mislead us. Now, what this is saying is, as an HR professional, you are expected to trust your guts to make decisions. But in the process of trying to trust your gut, you must also know that your biases also can be flawed. And because of that, you must be open to a more reliable way of knocking off the negatives and taking advantage of the positive. His name is Jordan Bebon. He's the VP Chief Behavior. This is a behavioral economist. And if you begin to do your findings, you realize that there's a lot of behavioral economists, and the only thing they do is to help organizations manage the employees' behaviors better by coming up with simple scientific models. Okay. Nudges. Okay, now what we want to do here is to now begin to look at nudges and apply it to certain things. Here is nudges and decision making. Nudges alter one's choice architecture to create an environment that promotes optimal decision making. What it does is it alters your choice architecture. Now, what is choice architecture? It said choice architecture is the context in which choices are presented to a decision maker. That's according to Taylor and Sustain. For example, the order in which two choices are presented, with one first and the other following, may influence how people interpret choices. And you see this at work every time when we are at meetings or when we are having deliberations with colleagues or at work, a decision is to be made. Most times, the decision we want people to go with is what we put first. So the way you structure it, or the order it is, your choices are arranged, is what is referred to as your choice architecture. So nudges alter one's choice architecture, in that nudges will always come to say, you know what, why don't you do it this way? Because there's a better perspective. Now, nudges can do the following. One, nudges can transfer decision making from system one, that is intuitive, to system two, analytical thinking. It means that you don't depend on your emotions. You are able to get very practical and realistic about the decision you want to make. And nudges can also create conditions that enable system one thinking to yield favorable results. In this case, I know we are all familiar with Orton's experiment. Now, Orton's experiment is the outcome of behavioral scientists or behavioral economists, whatever you call them today. Just one of those experiments was to test how a dog responds to the ringing of a bell. And it did it in such a way that when food is being brought to the dog, they will ring the bell. So with time, the dog had been conditioned to salivate whenever there's the ringing of the bell. So it got to a point that even when nothing is coming, just by ringing the bell, the dog begins to salivate. Now, there's a conditioning that had been created there. And that conditioning had been arranged in such a way that it helps to yield favorable result. Whatever you want to happen is what happens. Now, the two above say both can support the implementation of behavioral change. What we're talking about here is actually behavioral modification, but we want to do it in a way that is not unethical. For example, making colleagues on a wait list for training programs visible encourages participants to attend the sessions or to unenroll if they are no longer able to attend. What this is saying is there's going to be training, and some people are due for the training already, but they may not take it serious until they see that there's a list of people who are also waiting to go for the training program. So this can either encourage them to say, oh, so there are so many people that desire this kind of privilege that do not have it, so they take it serious. But if you don't make it visible to them, they may not know that other people are also interested in that. Another example is, say, for example, for the second one, it says, placing healthier foods at the front of the cafeteria line encourages individuals to fill up their trays with those options, as opposed to less healthy options further down the cafeteria line. What is simply saying is when you go for an event and it's a buffet, whatever you line up first is what most people will surely take. So what this is simply saying is, if you place healthy foods in front, that is what people will most likely go for. Why? Because you have conditioned them to see those first, and they will surely go for it. Now, McLean and Company's insight about this is choice architecture will impact people's decisions, even when it hasn't been explicitly designed. Realizing the impact of choice architecture on decision making can lead to better designed people processes, procedures, and practices. Don't forget what we say choice architecture is. We say it is the context in which choices are presented to a decision maker. How do you arrange them? It is the one you want them to see that you put first. And once they see it, it begins to form their thoughts. There's this statement that says, nudges don't help managers fix their employees. They correct the flaws in our surroundings. I need you to pay attention to this. You are not fixing the employee. Rather, we are only trying to correct notable flaws in our surroundings. It says HR is perfectly positioned to apply nudges in the organization because of its unique role. Now, HR, if you remember some slides earlier, I said HR is the integrator or the link in the system. And because HR is the integrator, everybody tilts towards HR because they believe HR is the only function that can help them solve their problem. So HR is perfectly positioned. How? When you look at your HR strategy, which is a derivative which derives from the corporate strategy of the organization, a huge part of change management, a key element of HR strategy, is encouraging the adoption of new behaviors to enable and sustain change. Changes are difficult for people to accept. But in this situation, in your HR strategy, you should be able to take care of this. You are thinking about modifying something, you put it in your strategy, then you begin to deliberately walk people through it. Then culture is about enabling and encouraging the behaviors associated with the organization's focus values. What this is saying is, for example, if you say we operate a culture of mutual trust, then when your subordinates come to you, you should not begin to second guess them. Second guessing them begins to make them feel, no, that is not right because it's contrary to what we are saying. Then HR infrastructure. The success of many aspects of HR infrastructure, not least of which is HR technology, is heavily dependent on behavioral changes from employees. Trust me, I know this when we talk about it from experience. As HR department, you come up with a system, with a product that should benefit everybody. If the line managers or HODs do not agree with it, or the major stakeholders do not see any need for it, they will frustrate it. So the first thing to do is, it depends heavily on behavioral changes from employees. Then learning and development. While the skills training and development opportunities afforded by L&D are essential to employee growth, very little value can be sustained if employees don't apply new behaviors in their day-to-day work. Where I work, there's this training that when people come, you just push them for customer service training. So, we work in the health sector, we need to be able to treat our people very well and all that. And you realize that at the end of the training, nothing has changed. And you have spent heavily on this. Then it got to a point, I just said, you know what? The changes are not coming. We need to do something else that leads to behavioral modification. And we began to look at a couple of strategies, a couple of programs in-house, and gradually we're able to achieve our results one step at a time. And that is very important. It's not enough to send people for training. It is enough for them to come back from training and what they have been taught is put to use such that it affects their behavior on the job. Then total rewards. The design of an organization's total rewards offering focuses on encouraging, driving, and rewarding the behaviors that the organization has deemed essential to success. What this simply says is, look for that one employee that goes out of his way to make, for example, in an hospital, your patients happy, and reward it. I could remember years back when I was still in federal civil service. There was a day a minister of health came to Lut. I wasn't working in Lut. The man came to Lagos, went to Lut. It was during a strike. When the man got to a particular department, I think it's medical lab department, the only person the man met on seat that day, the man gave them the directive to promote him. Now, the man was not due for promotion, but when the minister got there and found the man at his desk at about 8:30 in the morning, and the whole place was very empty, he gave a directive for the man to be promoted. Now, that alone would have led to behavioral modification on the part of some people that we never can tell when the minister will come again or someone else. They need to meet me. So you realize those who are perpetual latecomers begins to change their style because they could see reward for something that happened. Then talent acquisition. An effective talent acquisition process relies on sound decision making from a variety of stakeholders, e.g. hiring managers, which provides a lot of opportunity to influence behaviors to improve efficiency and objectivity. Then the last one is talent management. Of the many programs that make up talent management, the majority are designed with the intent to encourage behaviors and decision making that optimize organizational and individual performance. A talent management professional, what you do is to try to modify behaviors of all stakeholders involved in the successful performance of your job. As a result of that, nudging is something that you must know how to do. Now, McLean and Company's insight says nudges are not new. We need to know that. HR professionals have been applying the concept in practice for decades without having a formal name for it. But by taking an informed, measurable approach, HR can stop guessing and start reporting on the effectiveness of their nudge interventions. When we get there, we'll talk about it practically. Now, significant impact of nudges in HR application. Now, these are results of a survey. Health and safety. So a steel plant saw a 35% increase in employees following safety procedures after placing posters of watching eyes in areas where additional precautions were needed. All they just did was to place posters of watching eyes, and it gave an idea that somebody is watching me, and there was a 35% increase in adherence. Leadership development. ADP used reminder nudges to help managers act on low-scoring areas from 360-degree feedback, which increased scores by 10% compared to areas that managers did not receive nudges. What this is simply saying is, when a 360-degree feedback is obtained, there were areas where these people had low scores. Just by nudging them, they are able to put in more, and they experienced a 10% increase compared to areas where they were not nudged at all. Then training. Google implemented a nudge reminding employees of upcoming training sessions, which increased training attendance by 10%. Then it also increased advanced cancellation by 7%. What this is simply saying is they were having issues with training attendants, but just by giving nudges, and these nudges can be done physically, technology can also be used. You know, technology in the form of reminders can be used to nudge people. Then pension contributions. Siemens sent employees email nudges regarding the frequency of pension contributions of their peers. By capitalizing on employees' inherent social proof biases, Siemens saw a 21% increase in employee pension contributions by an average of 2.1%. Then flexible work performance management. Now, these are results of a survey that was done taking note of nudging, and by looking at that, it helped them to experience notable increase. Now, ethical considerations in nudging. Ethical principles in using nudges. Ethical concerns should always be evaluated when the goal of a nudge intervention is to influence behavior. The following are some common concerns with behavioral nudges. Free will. Concern that the nudge will force people to do something that they would prefer not to do. Now, nudging is not forcing things on people. Nudging is not carrot and stick approach. So nudging must not and should not take away the person's free will. 1. 2. Manipulation. If a nudge is overly persuasive, it may lead to a behavior that has not been fully consented to, as one may not be aware of their alternative choices or that they are even making a choice at all. What this is simply saying is, don't manipulate people. There's a way you can say something to people. They will not take it to mean you are giving them choices. They will see that you are forcing them. They may not be able to tell you. You might think you have nudged them. No, what you have only done is you have manipulated them. So you should watch out for it. Always give them options and do not use any threat. Biased choice architects. Those creating nudges have their own biases and heuristics. There is concern that these biases may be embedded in nudge interventions and lead to suboptimal decisions for those exposed to nudge. What we're saying is, if you are saying you want to give me choices and you're giving me 3 choices, and the 3 choices are the same but just tweaked in different forms, you have only manipulated the choice architect, and in a way you have not actually given me any choice. So whenever you are doing it, we need to be mindful of these things. Follow these 3 principles to address these ethical concerns and ensure nudges are used responsibly. 1. All nudges should be as easy as possible to opt out of, preferably with as little as 1 mouse click. A nudge should never limit the choices available nor penalize the employee's choices. This addresses the issue of the free will. Don't ever limit their choices and don't ever penalize them if they choose not to go there. All nudging should be transparent and never misleading. You want me to terminate someone, and instead of you saying it straight, stop making me feel like that person is the worst of people. Stop painting a picture of an evil person. Rather, give me all you want me to know about this. Let me make my decisions. After all, it's my decision. And the last one is, there should be good reason to believe that the behavior being encouraged will improve the welfare of those being nudged. If you want to encourage me to take a decision and the decision is not to my advantage, of what use is it? So to avoid manipulation and the influence of choice architects' biases on decision making, nudges should only be implemented if the outcome is seen to be beneficial to the individuals being nudged. If the outcome is not going to be beneficial to them, leave them alone. Okay. Here, ethical nudging in an organizational context. Now, nudges can lead to optimized decision making, but optimize for whose benefit? The third ethical principle regarding improved welfare of those being nudged may cause some challenges in an organizational context. 1, nudges must benefit the organization. Otherwise, there won't be any motivation to implement them. However, without a benefit to individual employees, The nudge risks being viewed as manipulative or having ulterior motives. To avoid this, nudge interventions must balance benefiting the organization with benefiting the individual employee being nudged. Okay, let me bring it here. There was recently we had to terminate 2 nurses in my organization based on recommendation and all that. And looking at it, I just felt it would be good not to terminate these people, but it would be good to allow them to resign. And while we're still thinking, discussing with the line manager and the management on what to do, because it was a back and forth, the 2 nurses turned in their resignation. And when they turned in their resignation, I asked my team members, please, let's process. Don't forget that according to the laws of our land, once you have the intention of sacking a staff and the staff first presents a resignation letter, you cannot terminate that staff again. You must allow that staff go through the process, because there are judicial decisions to that effect at the National Industrial Court. And because I know that once the resignations were turned in, we recognized the resignations and we began to work on it. And the line manager began to kick. And the question I asked was, why were we sending these people away? Was it for their destruction, or because we just did not want them in our operations in the nursing department? They said they do not want them. I said, so what is the big deal? After all, if these people had been terminated, I would have paid them. Now they are resigning, they are paying me. So as far as I am concerned, the management has gained by not spending money, and the staff has gained by not having been terminated, and they will tell you not having their records tainted. And it became an issue, but eventually we were able to get over it. That's just a practical example of something like that. Now, you see, we have the horizontal and we have the vertical. We have the low and we have the high on both sides. High benefit to the individual, whatever, if the nudging has high benefit to the individual and low benefit to the organization, this may not really run. It's an e.g. empowering employees with the resources needed to maximize their use of paramedical health benefits program. The organization is not enjoying this directly. The benefit is low. However, if you look at it from work-life balance, you realize that if they take advantage of paramedic health benefits, one of the things they can also do is it reduces the time off work they have, although the management will look at it as being low. Now, high benefit to the individual, high benefit to the organization, e.g., improving employee participation in learning and development activities. For as long as the L&D activities are effective, by the time this employee comes back, they will be able to add value to your system. So this is where, as HR manager, we now need to begin to talk to our employees, especially those who have stagnated for so long, who have not gone for additional training, who do not have additional qualification. We begin to counsel them on the need to get additional qualification. First, by painting the positive picture to them. Then the second is what value it will add to the organization. At that point, let me tell you something. When I did my tHRive, there were a couple of things I never knew. But when I began to go through the class, they were exposed to me, and all I kept doing was I kept jotting things down. I kept writing down. When I get back to the office, I'll call my team together. We have a session. We develop things around what I had learned in class, and we began to implement. That is the essence of learning and development. It's supposed to impact on your processes. Then low benefit to the individual, low benefit to the organization. Using graphics to nudge employees to follow proper recycling guidelines. We have found out that when you put health and safety tips at certain corners, most times people don't pay attention to them. Then low benefit to the individual, high benefit to the organization. E.g., reminding employees that their computers are monitored to reduce temptation for distractions and increase productivity. If you do this, the employees just felt like, oh, okay. For example, there's a time that we block people from using social media in our companies because we believe social media was a distraction. But today, social media has taken over and we no longer see it as a distraction. Then framework for applying nudging in HR. This was developed by McLean and Company. So it's called McLean and Company's Framework for Applying Nudges in HR. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are different. Now you need to define the outcome. Now this is when you want to nudge in your organization. These are the processes to follow. This is how to get it done and do it ethically. Define the outcome, map the decision-making process, identify bottlenecks and pressures, brainstorm nudge interventions, create a hypothesis, test and iterate. Now, here it says, defining the desired outcome of nudge intervention makes it easier to measure. Whatever is not defined is a thought in your head, and you can't measure it. The reason HR analytics seems to be the in thing now is you hear things like big data. The reason is simple. You should be able to make decisions based on trend. And you cannot know the trends if you don't chart things, if they don't come in form of a dashboard where it shows you in the last 6 years, this is what it has looked like. Then you can at some point, even seasons of the year. For example, when I was in the agri sector, agri business, we knew the period of the year when our services were not needed because it was off season. So all our programs were geared towards the planting season. So you begin to plan that a month before planting season, you invade the market, the farms, you engage the farmers, because that's the only way you can move your money, make your money. Then it gets to some point, you know that at that point you need to go back and begin to re-strategize. So you need to have idea about what is happening. And that is what planning does for us. Now, the challenge is you need to document the challenge you would like to address using nudges. What challenges have you identified? Define them. The second one is, what are the desired outcomes? Define the desired outcome based on the challenge you have defined in step 1. Then determine how you will measure the success. I came to realize that KPIs for most HR professionals, especially if you work in a place that is not well structured, are difficult. And even what people call KPIs are not measurable. They are abstract. But KPIs are things that can be easily measured. If you say 50% increase in output, it is easier to measure because you know what it was last year. You can measure it this year. But if you say notable increase in output is not measurable. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Okay, examples of the challenge. Performance management activities are not being completed by managers. I'm sure a whole lot of us will identify with this. Another challenge is a recent learning system implementation is at risk of failure due to low adoption rates. Then teams are not collaborating effectively. I'm sure these are problems that are very peculiar, that applies to almost everybody. Now, what is the desired outcome for the performance management activities that are not being completed by managers? Here, the desired outcome, the example is reach 95% completion of performance management activities by the annual deadline. So you are saying that the desired outcome is 95%. That means that if you do 94%, you have not achieved your desired outcome. Then for the one on the learning system, achieve 100% user adoption in the next 2 years. That means you have 24 months to get everybody in the organization to accept that learning system and buy into it. Then teams are not collaborating. Increase interaction between teams by 15% in the next 12 months. You realize that you have given your target 15% and you have given the duration, the 12%. Then you cannot break the 12 months down into 3 months or 2 months and begin to set milestones. And as you achieve those milestones, you know you are making progress. Then measurement. For the performance management, number of reviews submitted to the performance management system by the deadline is what measures the level of success you have achieved. For the learning system, daily, weekly, monthly user counts and course completion, they are your measures. It's just like in social media, how successful are you in social media? You begin to think about the likes, the follows, you think about the impressions. Those are the things you look out for that you can use to measure. Then for the team collaboration, number of emails sent between departments. Now, that is just a way you want to see that, oh, okay, these engagements are going on. That is what we're talking about when you design. Now, it's based on the challenge, desired outcome, and measurement identified. Determine who the target population is for your nudge intervention. See, the moment you identify the challenge, challenges are target population based, because what the challenge that is applicable to entry level staff may not be applicable to supervisory staff. So you should be able to determine who the target population for your nudge intervention is. In the performance management example above, which we will continue to build on throughout this step, the target population will be people managers. In the second example, the target population will be much broader. That is the learning system, including all learners in the organization. So you need to be able to narrow down to who your target population is. And that is what will determine the success of your nudge intervention. So choose to focus on challenges that will have an impact on organizational outcomes that are critical to success. This will ensure employees and leaders understand and buy into the importance of the intervention. Don't do an intervention that will have no value to the critical success of the organization. It will not go anywhere. Now, this statement, it says the most successful nudge implementations are the ones where managers include employees in the development of the nudges. Now, that statement was made by Sil Kroko. She's a nudge and behavioral design expert. Nudge and behavioral design expert. So you realize that these are behavioralists who are actually behind this. And since we talk about organizational behavior, these are things that we need to pay attention to. Map the employee decision-making process leading to the desired outcome. You know, that's the second one. The first one is to desire the outcome and define, talk about the desired outcome. Now, say map the employees. You are mapping to ensure that you are able to follow everything. Map the employee decision-making process leading to the desired outcome. Now, sample challenge. Performance management activities are not being completed by managers. That's the challenge. The first step towards it is you need them to buy into the importance of performance management to the organization's success. That's the first step. They must accept that it is very important. Then the second one is have regular performance conversations with employees and document them. Now, this is for the people managers. You encourage them to always have that constant engagement and conversation with their direct reports and document them. For me, in my team, what we came up with was we realized that conducting performance appraisals or performance management activities every 6 months can be very tedious and can be very unsuccessful, in that what has happened over 6 months, most managers don't even take note. So all we decided to do is say, it's better not to rush it. We say, you know what we do, on every 2-month period, we get managers to complete something for us. So at the end of the 6th month, we don't need to go back to them. If you look at everything, if you put it into a system, just an ordinary Excel system will give you the average performance of that person for the 6 months. And that way, it makes it very interesting. So employees know they are being monitored and they will respond effectively. Then the next one is allocate time to prepare for the annual performance review. Give a time, let them know about it in advance so they can prepare for it. But if you have a periodic review apart from the annual one, what it does is when it's time for the annual one, they are able to put all their thoughts together and do the right thing. Schedule year-end meeting and send employees self-assessment. This manager should do this. They want to schedule year-end meeting with their employees, and whatever you have assessed them, share with them with your candid comment about it, because it's meant to help them to get better. Then complete annual performance review and submit results to the performance management system where it exists. Bottlenecks. Where is it going wrong? A bottleneck is an aspect of the decision-making process that causes inefficient or suboptimal decisions. At each step, ask the following question. Is the target population currently making this decision? Why or why not? Is this decision a critical point of failure for the process? Once you find the bottleneck, you need to be able to pull through it. And when you ask this question, it's able to expose to you what the real issue is, and you can take it up from there. Then the next one is pressures. Why is the performance management process or system going wrong? A pressure is the reason or cause for a decision and can be categorized as a promoting pressure, influencing someone to behave in a certain way, or an inhibiting pressure, influencing someone not to behave in a certain way. So it's either you behave in a certain way or you don't. So whether if it's a promoting pressure, it pushes towards behaving in the way expected. If it's an inhibiting pressure, it stops from if behaving the way we had expected you to behave. For each step of the decision map, uncover the pressures influencing decision making, such as biases and heuristics. Don't forget, we say biases are not character flaws. They just have their own negative sides. You need to be able to eliminate the negative sides and take advantage of the positives. Okay, this one says identify the bottlenecks and pressures in the decision making. That's what we're talking about. What this is doing is, where is the population making a suboptimal decision, and where is the decision making process breaking down? Those are the bottlenecks. And many managers believe that the performance management process is a waste of time. Now, these are things that we see. Managers believe it's a waste of time. Managers are not documenting results of performance management system and performance conversations. Managers are prioritizing other work that is happening at the same time as the annual performance review, resulting in late assessment. Now, these are peculiar bottlenecks and challenges we have. So you realize that we still have the map, the decision making map. So all those things cut across these different levels. Then what are the pressures? Social proof. Managers hear from their peers that they do not buy into the importance of PM. And since manager A says, I don't agree with it, manager B is manager A's friend, they just say, you know what, let's just leave it. Now, those are pressures. Pressure from manager A inhibits manager B from acting the way we want manager B to act. And that happens a lot in our environment. Then present biases. Managers may find it difficult to recognize the future gains associated with regular performance management conversations. I don't know about your experience, but my experience, this holds to be true. Managers would almost literally frustrate. In fact, we had an exercise at the end of last year in my organization, and managers were the one that rated their people. But we did a qualitative appraisal. So they thought it cannot be measured. So we just gave them like exceed expectation, meet expectation, and all that. And they just ranked them anyhow. But by the time we analyzed it, we realized that most departments rated themselves just average. So when we presented it to them, they began to fight. Said, no, we didn't give you what we felt like giving you. This is what you feel. By the time we show the system to us, now they understand better. They are willing to do it better. Why? Because they've now been made to see that you need to pay attention to whatever you are doing. And then the time of year when annual performance reviews take place, it's also a very busy time in terms of revenue generating activities. It depends on your industry, but it doesn't have to be December. You just need to look at the time when there will not be too many competing activities. Discussions with managers indicate that the system is complex and requires more training. When your performance management system is complex, you need to keep training to make it happen. Then the pressures, what are the biases and heuristics influencing decision making? What barriers to decision making exist? What pressures are promoting or inhibiting the desired decisions? McLean says focus on bottlenecks and pressures at the start of the decision making process, as the impact is felt through the entirety of the process and they have the greatest impact on decision outcome. So they are encouraged to focus on bottleneck and pressures at the beginning of the decision-making process, because they have the potential for frustrating whatever you are planning to come up with. Then brainstorm nudge interventions that would encourage the desired outcome. Now, some common nudge types include default roles. Make the more beneficial option the default, e.g. automatically opting employees into benefits or pension contributions. What is the most beneficial option in your nudge intervention? Make it the default. Simplification. Promote ideal decision by limiting the number of barriers to make it. Reminders. Remind people to make decisions and take action in a purposeful and strategically timed manner. Disclosure, provide all of the information needed to make an informed decision. Don't hold back anything. Just let it go. Then framing, purposefully present an ideal option in a more desirable way. What he's saying is you can actually say something good in a wrong way that it will not be appealing to those who are supposed to be part of it. But we're saying be purposeful. And when you are purposeful, you package your statement in a certain way that makes people want to come in. See, recently I've had to speak with a lot of consultants because we're recruiting, and consultant surgeon, consultant anesthetist, doctors naturally are full of themselves. And they believe that nobody can be as smart as them, especially the consultants. But you see, I engaged two of them on the phone some weeks back. At the end of the day, they said to me straight, they said, you are a marketer. You literally want me to just get out of where I am now and just come and start working with you. Why? Because all I did was to present the positives, what the things they stand to gain that will benefit them to them. And I also made them realize what the organization stands to gain by their coming. So at the end of the day, they could see them benefiting from it, and I could see my organization benefiting from it. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. And that's how it works. But the right use of words will either help you or not. Graphics and warnings, use visual cues to help people quickly decipher between beneficial and less ideal decisions. Social norms, highlight decisions made by majority as a form of indirect influence. Pre-commitment strategies, create accountability by enabling people to commit to a behavior prior to completing it. Then informing people of the consequences of the past decision. Inform people about the consequences of past decision to prevent them from making that same decision again. Made a decision that was wrong, then you are telling me so that I will not make it again, not that you just want to punish me about it. It says create a hypothesis. That is the sixth step in the framework. What is an hypothesis? It's an assumption. And you are trying to test against that assumption to see if that assumption will hold true or otherwise. Nudges aim to limit the negative impacts of identified bottlenecks and pressures that are restricting people from making better decisions. To measure the success of nudges, outline a hypothesis for the selected interventions. You have identified your interventions. You have defined everything. You have identified your target population. Now, for every challenge identified, come up with a hypothesis. A hypothesis is based on evidence of some kind, whether it's quantitative or qualitative. It must be measurable. The hypothesis needs to be measurable in order to be tested. A hypothesis specifies the nudges to be implemented, the target population of the nudge, the intended outcome of the nudge, the measure of success. Human behavior is complex. Don't be discouraged if a nudge does not result in the intended behavior. Adjust your hypothesis and test iterations to significantly impact the success of a nudge intervention. The next slide will talk about that. Now, McLean and companies I says hypotheses are almost always wrong, which is why organizations benefit from implementing a few nudges at once and comparing their effectiveness to the testing stage of the intervention. Testing multiple iterations of nudges helps determine which one or which ones will be most effective. Do not hold back. Keep testing. Keep testing until you get one that delivers your result. Example, hypothesis, nudge. Reminder to have regular performance conversations with direct reports. It's a nudge. You can set it as a reminder on your system. You can do it as a phone call. Target population, people managers who have not logged into the performance management system in the past quarter. What's the intended outcome? To increase the occurrence and documentation of regular performance management conversations. How do you measure the success? Percentage change of logins into the PM system and percentage change of documented conversations. Those are the ways. This is just an example about how to come up with hypotheses and you're able to measure it at the same time. Then finally, test the effectiveness of interventions and iterate to find the best solution. Test the hypothesis of the selected interventions. By launching variations of an intervention to small population. This small population can be your control group. You want to find out how they will respond and all that, and it gives you an idea about what will come up to understand which intervention leads to the highest success rate of a desired behavior. Include a control group where nothing is changed from the current decision-making process. Each group variation alters one variable, different nudge, timing, frequency. What he's simply saying is create your groups, make something different about each group so that the measure of success can be easily attributed to a specific variable. Population groups exposed to different variations should be representative of the population being targeted by the intervention in terms of race, gender, age, tenure, and department. For example, you want to run something in an organization, and the organization has 4 departments. Pick people across the departments, people on similar cadre or position in the department and in the organization, and people who have been in the organization for almost similar period. It helps you to be able to get something right. The example here is the target audience is to split into 4 groups, A, B, C, D. Group A is the control, so nothing is implemented. Group B receives a reminder once a week before quarterly performance conversation. You know, we're still talking about the performance management system. Group C receives a reminder 1 day before quarterly conversations. Group D receives a reminder both 1 week and 1 day before. Remember, Group A did not receive any nudge. Group B receives a nudge 1 week before the real activity. Group C receives a reminder 1 day before, and Group D receives both 1 week and 1 day before. Then comparing results between the 4 groups will help test various nudges and compare their efficacy. What that is simply saying is, by the time you now come up to now study these 4 groups, you might find out that the group D people may do better. Why? Because they got 2 nudges. They got the one a week before, and they got the one a day before. McLean and Company says the impact of nudge interventions will differ according to the context in which the nudge is implemented. What worked once may not work again. Embrace testing and iterations of the nudge to obtain the most impactful results for your organization. You have identified your target population. You have divided them into groups. What is the most effective method? It has worked. Implement it. That's what he's simply saying. Nudging application in HR functions. Examples. I'll run through this. Nudges, apply nudges to improve HR function effectiveness. We have in change management, L&D, total rewards, talent acquisition, talent management, HR infrastructure, and organizational culture. Now, nudges in change management. Nudges are important tool to support the change management process. Now, there are 4 key things you need to make sure happens when you are implementing a change. You want to, 1, align and plan. What you do is adopt an organizationally aligned approach. Here it says use nudges that plan the change. No, use nudges to help plan the change by understanding the biases and heuristics involved and how nudge interventions can be used throughout the change process. It is when you understand how it can be used, you understand all the biases and heuristics, that you can come up with something that can help to align and plan. So then the second one is develop and train. Build change management capability and resilience. Here, you use nudges to understand the pressures and bottlenecks contributing to change fatigue and to encourage employees to engage in the training and practice of the new behaviors. Then the third one is you want to inform and interact. That is clear, consistent, constant communication. Here, the use of nudges throughout the communication plan may help inform what messages are necessary, how to best deliver them, and who needs to see them. What you are doing there is you want to make your information very clear, you want to be consistent, and you want to be constant with the right information. And the last one is you want to measure and iterate. You want to sustain the change and act on learnings. After the change has been implemented, use nudges to address behavioral or decision-making issues that come up in the change sustainment process, or reinforce the behaviors needed for a successful change. There are certain behaviors that will need to be changed, but there are certain behaviors that will need to be reinforced. Once you have identified this, you need to reinforce them. That's how nudging becomes effective in change management process. Now it says align nudges with employee needs when undergoing change. In addition to using nudges from the perspective of a change management practitioner, it can also be valuable to examine nudges from the perspective of the individuals undergoing the change. Prosky's outcome model represents the different phases of what employees need in order to support lasting organizational change. Now, the first one there is A, awareness. How do you build awareness? Reminders help to build awareness that a change is coming. So before you implement the change, you need to create that massive awareness. And massive awareness can only be sustained through reminders. Then pre-commitment strategies build awareness of how employees will be asked to participate in the change. What this is simply saying is you must engage in pre-commitment strategies that will give me an idea about what will be required of me when the change management commences. Then the D, we're looking at this Prosky's outcome model. D means desire. Now it says frame the change positively. Show employees how the change will benefit them. Then disclosure of the benefits of the change for employees will help build desire in them. You have created massive awareness. They know it's going to happen. They know what is expected of them when they're asked to participate. But you also need to be able to create that desire in them to be part of the change management process. Then knowledge. Disclosure of the role employees will play in the change helps them understand what will be expected of them. Reminders reinforce employees' knowledge of how to adapt to the change. It's not enough to disclose to them their role in the change management process, but you also need to keep reminding them. The reminder here is the real nudge. Keep reminding them about it. Then ability. Graphics and warnings inform employees about how to make the needed changes. Simplification helps employees navigate a complex change more easily. So what this is talking about is make the communication process very seamless, such that it makes it very easy for every employee to understand and gain that ability to be able to pull through with the change management process. It doesn't matter how complex it is. Then we have the reinforcement. Default rules prevent, it says default rules prevent employees from reverting to old habits and sustain the change. Informing employees of the consequences of their past mistakes sustains the change by reinforcing the what is in it for me of adopting the change. You see here, it's a bit selfish. When people see them in a change management process and they see that it's positive to them, they want to tilt towards it. Then these are examples. I'll actually run through this, but let me just show you the one for change management. Change management nudge examples. For example, here the desired outcome is to increase use of new requisition process. Now, what is the nudge there? Informing people of the consequences of the past mistakes. When keeping an old process running in parallel with a new one during a transition period, include a message when completing the old process detailing how much time is wasted by using the old process versus the new one. What you are simply saying is, you are saying, see, every time you use this process, this is what it does. For example, for those who don't have time and attendance machine in their organizations, we're used to filling an attendance form. And when you want to analyze your attendance for the month at the end of the month, someone will have to pick the register and start writing and doing. But if it is to just clock in on a biometric device, what happens is the moment the person clocks in, it's being recorded in the system. So if there's a change between the paper and that, all you need to let people involved know is, see, the time it takes you to write inside the attendance register, it's a waste of time. It only takes you 2 to 5 seconds to just swipe your hand across the device and you are done. And every time they see that, they say, oh, okay, that's true. I don't need a pen. I don't need to start looking for a pen. I just need to just swipe my finger, my thumbs, and I'm gone. Then the hypothesis there is by informing all hiring managers of the time wasted from using the old requisition process, they will be more likely to use the new process as measured by the percentage of requisitions through the old process. Now, this is a change management process, but because of our time, let me move. This for L&D. I'll be picking one example from each of them. Here, I said the desired outcome is to boost participation rates in L&D programs. What is the nudge? Default rules. Automatically opt employees into optional L&D programs that relate to their professional development. If they do not want to attend, they can easily opt out of the program. What it's simply saying is you are not asking the employees if the employees are interested in being part of it. You automatically sign them up for it. Then but you're now also giving them the opportunity to say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this. That's why we said in nudging, you don't punish people. You only want to modify behavior in an ethical manner. Then the hypothesis there, using a default rules nudge to automatically opt all employees into L&D programs they qualify for, into programs they qualify for, we boost employee participation rates in optional L&D programs as measured by the number of employees who have completed an optional L&D program in the past year. So over a period of time, you can actually now see that, oh, opting them in automatically helps, and you can move on from there. Okay, this is the one we talked about, Google. But because of our time, we need to move on. Total rewards. Increase employee benefits use. Okay, here, the nudge is simplification. Simplify the process of employees to apply for reimbursement for paramedical expenses. Now, if you want to encourage employees to be able to make use of benefits, what this is simply saying is simplify the process of getting refunds. Once you simplify the process of getting refunds, for example, you can say, look, the moment you get to where you are going to, for example, healthcare, the moment you get to the hospital and you have made payment and they've given you your receipt, snap it with your phone and share it with me on WhatsApp. Not the fact that you said, look, share it on WhatsApp, it will be acted upon, is to make life easier for them. So the things they will have done and not want to share or foot drag to share, they just begin to do it very fast. Disclosure, I said, make it easier for employees to discover and understand what benefits are available to them. The hypothesis here, it says a simplification and or disclosure nudge for all employees will increase employee benefits use as measured by the percentage of employees applying for reimbursement. Okay, these are examples though. Then talent acquisition nudge examples. Increase candidate diversity. You see, as we speak, in my organization, we just finished an interview, a virtual interview, and when we were sharing the CVs of shortlisted candidates with my MD, the first thing he said to my officer that is responsible is, I am tired. I don't want to see Yoruba people. Give me an Igbo man. And all I just needed to say to her was, why didn't you tell him that we have about 6 people and about 3 of them are Igbos? Now you realize that he's conscious about diversity in the office, but he did not look at the totality of what was sent to him. He just saw one and he was saying. So that means that even as HR professionals, diversity is something we must be deliberate about. Here, for increased candidate diversity, the nudge is simplification. Hide certain applicant information, e.g. age, photos, school, etc. from resumes, and cover letters during the recruitment process to prevent recruiters' unconscious biases from impacting the initial candidate screening. What that simply means is, you know, your CV, you say state of origin, local government of origin, and all that. It says hide those details, age. If they are there, the schools they finished from, hide them from the CVs and the cover letters. What it does is it allows the people involved in the interviewing and the hiring and the recruiters to be on to get rid of the negative biases and they are able to look at candidates as candidates and not as an Igbo candidate or as a Yoruba candidate or as an old candidate or as a too young candidate. They see them as candidates who seem to have relevant work experience, and they will be willing to engage them to achieve the aim. Then the hypothesis here says simplifying and anonymizing certain applicant information in the early stages of the recruitment process for all applicants will result in increased candidate diversity in later stages of the recruitment process, as measured by the number of self-declared members of a protected group. This is something that in practice we should be able to try. Then talent management nudge examples. Increase performance review completion. Here it says the nudge is reminder. Send email reminders to managers to complete performance reviews on time. Now, social norms include in email reminders the completion rate of performance review in other organizational departments. What this is simply saying is, if you have an organization that has about 15 departments and 5 departments have complied and they filled it on time, said in those email reminders, include the completion rate of this performance review. For this person, it will nudge the person, it will propel the person to want to act the way you desire the person to act. The hypothesis there is email reminders sent to managers in a department with low performance review completion rates will increase the completion rate as measured by the performance change of completion rates by the due date compared to previous performance review cycles. That's your hypothesis is to draw up an assumption and you want to see what will come up at the end of the day. Then HR infrastructure, an example of nudge. Increase adoption of employee self-service capabilities. The nudge here is framing. Before employees can submit a ticket to an HR or IT service desk, include a message with some common requests that can be completed through self-service and explain how much faster it will be to get the needed information by using self-service rather than submitting a ticket. This is where bot comes in. You know, WhatsApp, Telegram, a lot of these mobile applications and social networks are coming up with bots. Bots are like machines that have been programmed to respond to certain questions. When they see certain keywords, they pull out information and they are able to respond to you. So you may not need to really speak to a human being, except the bot is not able to answer your question. That is what we're saying here. Do something like a frequently asked question that just by logging in there and seeing that repository, the person may not even need to talk to someone else. And for as long as you know that when you get there, you get your information, you realize that I don't need to go. And the use of that platform becomes very interesting. For example, you have an HRMS and people are used to writing paper to apply for leave. And they know that by just logging into the HRM, the self-service portal, they can just select this one. They don't write anything too much. In 2 minutes maximum, they've applied. And they receive notifications in their mail. They should realize that, look, let me just do it. And by doing that, acceptance for that system will surely spike. Then the hypothesis is framing common support requests as being solved faster by using self-service than by submitting a ticket will encourage employees needing support to use self-service capabilities as measured by the decrease of number of support tickets submitted to IT HR desks, because most of the questions that people want to ask already have been answered. So they don't need to really submit a ticket. Organizational culture, increase employee engagement. Now, what we're talking about today is a way of enhancing employee engagement as well. It says, what is the nudge? Reminders disclosure. Provide email reminders to managers and employees, encouraging them to have career development conversations with each other, including tips on how to have effective conversations regarding growth and development. If you do this, because you are nudging both ends of the spectrum, what happens is they are able to consciously think about it and it will happen. The hypothesis there is providing reminders to employees and managers on how to have effective conversations about development and growth opportunities will increase engagement as measured by the monthly polls and annual engagement surveys. Now, key highlights and closing remarks. From this from the survey, insight one is nudges are not new. HR professionals have been applying the concept in practice for decades without having a formal name for it. But by taking an informed, measurable approach, HR can stop guessing and start reporting on the effectiveness of their nudge interventions. Insight two, there's a natural reliance on system one thinking as it results in making quick and easy decisions. These decisions, however, may not always be as optimal as we like to believe. Both systems of thinking have their merits, and nudges guide people to use the system that's best for the situation. I know you can still remember system one and system two thinking. Insight three, choice architecture will impact people's decisions even when it hasn't been explicitly designed. Realizing the impact of choice architecture on decision making can lead to better designed people processes, procedures, and practices. Insight four, choose to focus on challenges that will have an impact on organizational outcomes that are critical to success. This will ensure employees and leaders understand and buy into the importance of the intervention. Insight five, focus on bottlenecks and pressures at the start of the decision-making process, as their impact is felt through the entirety of the process and they have the greatest impact on desired outcome. Insight six, hypotheses are almost always wrong, which is why organizations benefit from implementing a few nudges at once and comparing their effectiveness in the testing stage of the intervention. Testing multiple iterations of nudges helps determine which one or which ones will be most effective. And insight seven, the impact of nudge interventions will differ according to context in which the nudge is implemented. What worked once may not work again. Embrace testing and iterations of the nudge to obtain the most impactful results for your organization. Now, these are statements that we had made earlier. They are statements we are seeing. These are extracts from McLean and Company's insight at the base of each of those slides. Now, when he's talking about situations, say every decision we make is informed by biases and heuristics. Heuristics are mental shortcuts used in decision making, but they are a double-edged sword. They enable people to make quick and intuitive decisions, but also lead to rash and misinformed choices. One, biases and heuristics are of particular concern in an organizational context, since misinformed or suboptimal decisions made by employees can have a significant impact on organizational outcome. Now, complications in the process says employees are often unaware of the impact that biases and heuristics have on their behavior. However, even when employees are aware of those impacts, it's very difficult to continually be conscious of those limitations when making decisions. This is where nudging comes in. Nudges are a behavioral science tool to alter the environment and context that decisions are made in to encourage better decision making. However, the use of behavioral science concept by HR has been limited due to its perceived complexity. Then resolution, map out the decision-making process of employees' suboptimal behaviors to determine any pressures or bottlenecks that are inhibiting employees from making better choices. Develop ethical nudges that address the pressures and bottlenecks faced by employees. Test and iterate nudges to ensure they are creating an environment in which employees are encouraged to make decisions that benefit both the individual as well as the organization. This is reality. Every decision you make will lead to these complications, but these complications can be resolved by the resolution that has been presented here. Okay, credit, I said McLean and Company, that's their website. I gleaned a lot. I saw the survey they did and the article they wrote, and I did a lot of reading, and I realized that somehow it has been very useful to me, And when I had the opportunity of coming on, I just said I needed to do this. But I need us to pay attention to something here. Number one, talent or recruitment specialists, let me use it that way, have been using this, very though not all of them, over since for as long as I can remember. I had a class last week, last Saturday, Sunday, and the facilitator of that class said she began to share her experience about how she's a senior talent person in a Canadian company, how she engages with people before while they are still sourcing, and how she keeps the engagement even while they have been interviewed and they've not even been given the role. And the reason for that is you want to deliberately nudge these people. Well, see, you can nudge people both within and outside the organization. All you are trying to do is to create a kind of environment that makes the person feel, I think this is the right place for me to go to. I think I would be better taken care of here. That's why you see people, when you talk about organizations, they want to work with the multinationals, they want to work with international development institutions, they don't want to work with some companies. Why? Because there's a kind of nudging that is happening. Although it's not a an overtly visible thing, it's a covert nudging, and those nudging as a result of information are available to them. And once people see this, they want to go towards that direction. And you as an HR professional, you can, to be candid with you from my personal experience, you can nudge your line manager, you can nudge the person that is line managing you. So nudging does not have to come from the top, nudging can also come from the base. But all you are trying to do is to create that environment that helps to modify behavior in the right direction that will both benefit the person and benefit the organization. Once that is done, you realize that you get the best result for your practice. Thank you, Mr.
Wow.
Jide.
Thank you very much, Kade. That was awesome. That was some deep thoughts there. Thank you for your brilliant research and your fantastic delivery.
Thank you.
I'm sure we've learned a lot. I'm waiting for the questions now. But first, let me know, how was that session? I told you at the beginning that this is a very interesting topic. When I saw the topic and read about it, it was mind blowing. Nudging, when done correctly and ethically, can totally transform the business outcome and the behavior of employees to yield better performance in your organization. So I will enjoy you all to read more about this concept of nudging and do more research and try and apply it to your workplace, and you see fantastic, tremendous results. I saw some case studies of where this has been applied, and the results were totally phenomenal. Thank you, Kade, for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Questions?
Okay, time for questions, please. Let's have your questions. You can use the Q&A feature. For those watching on YouTube, you can drop your questions in the chat box. So we wait for the questions. Okay, I can see a question. Philip says it was a great session. I was almost trying to relate it with O and OD. The thing is, you can relate it with any HR function. You can see some examples across different functions there.
Yeah.
So you can actually relate it with any function. So do more reading, and then I'm sure you'll be able to do that. Okay, we have a question from Emmy. what kind of behavioral trainings can we imbibe for cultural transformation and change management?
Okay. I'm trying to get the question so that I can read it myself.
Okay.
Please, can you read it again? I want to show that slide that has to do with that. Then I'll talk about it.
Okay, so the question again is, what kind of behavioral trainings can we imbibe for cultural transformation and change management?
Okay. Um, Number one, the first thing I think I would like to say here is that while a lot can be achieved through trainings, okay, is it here? Let me 1 minute, please. Let me come up. Oh, I want to. Sorry. Okay. Now, this is a change management process. Now, when you are talking about behavioral trainings, from personal experience, I have come to realize that behavioral modification trainings are not classroom trainings. Behavioral modification trainings are mostly decisions taken by individuals, in this case professionals, to embark or engage in activities, deliberately engaging in activities that will begin to change their perspective to issues. The first thing is, until your perspective as a person has changed, you cannot help anybody. Now, how do I talk about it? I could remember when I just joined my current organization, I was a loner. When I say loner, I meant nobody really wanted to listen to what I had to offer because I was totally different from what they were used to. And the behavior around the place was that of you can't trust anybody, which derives from the culture that was prevalent. Now, it was now my business and my headache to begin to think about, okay, this is what culture that exists, this is the culture that exists here at the moment. Because culture to a great extent is what influences the behavior you see. Given the right culture, even a wrong person, for example, permit me to use this. Nigerians go to the UK, and I have not traveled to the UK, but I have heard people say it, that when Nigerians at Muritala Mohammed Airport, they just run everywhere. But the moment they get to Heathrow Airport, they line up and they don't beat queues, they don't jump queues, and they don't do funny things. And the question is, what is different? It's the same person in two different environments. One, there's a culture of, it's a no-nonsense culture. You must follow simple organizational rules or the rule in that company, and so people line up. Then there is one that it doesn't matter who you are, just come there, you can beat the system. So if I were to say, okay, this is the kind of behavioral modification training, sincerely, I can't say. But I can say one thing for sure, that whoever needs to experience this change must be willing to be changed. And that will determine what kind of training you think can be most effective for you in achieving your aim. I don't know if I'm able to respond to you the way you expected, but deliberately I don't talk about specific trainings because, for example, when you go through trainings, you are only exposed to knowledge. You're only exposed to knowledge, but what you make from those information you have gained is now left to you or for you to apply in your situation. So I think I wouldn't want to specifically mention a training, but I would rather say if you truly are ready to change, there are tools that can help you to experience those changes.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Okay, more questions, please. You know, asking question is one way to know whether you learned something or not. So if you don't have questions, at least in the chat session, then send us one key takeaway that you got today, so that we know that you truly learned something. While we are expecting more questions as well. So let's have everyone. Let's have one key takeaway from you. Okay, while we're waiting, remember, please note the attendance code for those who would need a certificate of completion at the end of the program, and for HRCI certification holders that want to claim the certification credits as well. So that is the attendance code for this session. It's great having you all here. Okay, let me read some of the comments here. Okay, so Bonande says nudges are important in every HR function. Eunice says that learns that nudges can improve the behavior of employees in an organization. Felicia says you have to avoid all possible biases while nudging. Thank you for sharing your takeaways. Thank you very much. Bakari Olaide says on YouTube, once a good organizational culture has been established, people will conform. Thank you for your comments. I think Kayode has done such a great job that there are no questions here. So like I said, please go and study these concepts more, and then try and apply it in your organizations, and you see tremendous results. Tomorrow we start by 9 a.m. Okay, there's a question. I'll take that shortly. So this is the last session for today. Tomorrow we gather here again by 9 a.m. There are going to be 3 sessions. The first session is strategic talent acquisition, to be taken by Samuel Akinoton by 9 a.m. Second session, we start by 12 noon, leveraging on succession planning to emerge stronger. It will be taken by Kamar Aderibigbe. Then in last session tomorrow by 3 p.m., employee experience and the evolution of work by Patrick Akam. Trust me, you don't want to miss any of the sessions. As much as you can, plan your schedule around these timings, and then we'll see you. Question. I have one here. Okay. The question is, in what type of way can I nudge my line manager, especially when he or she doesn't want to be influenced?
Okay, this is an interesting one.
Yes.
If you have ever worked in the civil service, you would realize that getting your line manager or your superior to listen to you is always difficult. But when I worked as an admin HR officer with the National Orthopedic Hospital, I had a director of admin. I was a grade level 8 officer and she was a grade level 17 officer. But over time, she recognized she saw something in me that, yes, I was a grade level 8 officer, but there was more. So there was a day I engaged and I said, look, the hospital organogram was wrong. That it was creating chaos and it was creating confusion and we needed to correct it. And she said, no, we can't change it. If you want to change it, this person will fight, this person will fight. And I said, why don't you just propose it? And she said, look, I don't know. So all I did was I went home over the weekend. I sat down, documented all my thoughts, gave her options, and redesigned the entire organizational structure. And I put footnotes, comments. And when we got to the office on Monday, I printed it and I gave it to her. She asked, oh, what's this? I said, my thoughts that I told you about, I've documented them. These are the things in my head. So she took it home. She went through everything. But I made her realize that, see, we have nothing to lose. Where we are is still where we are. But if we do this, it will help us. The next day when she got back to work, she said, oh, I never knew it could work that way. And because of that, she presented it to the top management committee of the hospital, who saw it. The people she said were going to fight against it were the first set of people to embrace it. And it was pushed to the board. And the board approved it. And that is what is in use today. I left there about 3 years ago. Now, the reason for that is, most times, the mistake we make is that we want to literally force our ideas on our line managers. But whatever idea you have, talking about it, your emotions will be involved. But the best thing you can do is document it. Put the benefit of the idea to your line manager there. Once it's properly documented, he sees it. I tell you the truth, everywhere I've worked, documented ideas that are well thought out and never turned down. They may not be implemented the way you want it to be implemented, but it will always be implemented. From my experience, I have seen it happen. So the best way to nudge your line manager is to document whatever you want to share. And after you have documented it, look at it again. Make sure you have not dropped your emotion on that document. Separate your emotions, because it's a business thing. Once it's there, you have documented it. It is left for your manager to either accept it or not. So while you are developing it, make up your mind. It's not a must for your manager to say yes. That is one thing. Then the second one is, I have given you the idea. Let it run. It's a question of time. When you are presented two documents like that are well thought out and will add value to the system, your line manager will be the ones that will be asking you for opinions when things are to happen. So nudging your line manager is not forcing your line manager. It is put your thoughts in clear form, document it, hand it over to your line manager, let your line manager go and ruminate over it and see what will come from it. I think that's it.
Thank you very much for that response. Okay, waiting for more questions before we close the session for today. It's been an awesome day spending time with every one of us. I trust we've all had a great time. All the sessions has been wonderful, I must say. Thank you again, Kayode.
Thank you.
Okay, more questions? We still have a few more minutes, 8 more minutes. If you have any more questions. Okay, Silva says, this was well done. I agree with you, Kayode, that this is something a lot of us do unconsciously, but it is an eye-opener to be deliberate with nudging. Yes, it is. Done deliberately, ethically, and correctly. It is a fantastic concept. Okay, any more questions? Kemi Sola says nudges help you to make informed, unbiased, and better decisions. Absolutely. Thank you for your comments. Okay, it's been great having you all. All right. I don't think we have any more questions. So from tomorrow, there's something we'll be doing. We'll start the sessions 15 minutes earlier so we can chat and interact and network with one another. If we're at a physical conference, there's a lot of networking that goes on and we meet new people. So we're trying to create that as well on this virtual conference. So you can join early if you have the time. We'll start each session 15 minutes earlier, so you can network and meet your HR colleagues and make new connections. I think that would be fun and be a great idea. Thank you once again for joining. Everyone watching on YouTube, thank you. And everyone that joined in here, thank you very much. See you again at 9 a.m. God bless you.
Thank you.